Captain Zara Kethvar pressed her long, slender fingers against the cold metal of the ship's viewing window. Her large purple eyes reflected the terrible sight before her. The planet below was dying. Orange flames covered the surface like a disease. Black smoke rose into the atmosphere, turning the sky dark. This was her home. This was where she had been born 30 cycles ago. Now it was burning. The Veltai had been a peaceful people for over 2,000 years. They built beautiful cities that grew like living trees. They created art that could make people cry with joy. They studied the stars and dreamed of meeting other kinds of life among them. They had small ships for trade and exploration, but they had no weapons of war. They had forgotten how to fight. They thought everyone in the galaxy was like them. They were wrong. The hive came from the dark spaces between stars. Nobody knew where they started or how long they had existed. They looked like giant insects with metal parts attached to their bodies. They moved in perfect groups like ants following orders. They had no names, no art, no songs. They only wanted to consume and grow. Zara watched another explosion bloom on the planet's surface. The hive ships were long and black, shaped like spears. They moved through space without sound, dropping fire from the sky. Each blast erased a city. Each flash meant millions of her people were dead. Her ship, the Luminous Dawn, was not built for war. It was a research vessel, meant to study new worlds and catalog strange plants. The hull was white and curved like a flower petal. It had laboratories and libraries, not weapons or armor. Now it drifted powerless in space, its engines broken by hive weapons. "Captain," said Jorik, her second officer. His voice was quiet and sad. "The fleet is gone." Zara closed her eyes. The Veltai defense fleet had been beautiful to see. Silver ships that moved like dancers through space. They had fought bravely for 3 days, but they were not built to kill. Their weapons were meant to stop asteroids or clear space debris. Against the hive, they had been like children throwing stones at monsters. "How many escaped?" Zara asked. "Perhaps a few hundred ships," Jorik replied. "They scattered to the outer worlds. But Captain, the hive is following them. They hunt everything that moves." Zara nodded slowly. She had known this would happen. The hive did not take prisoners. They did not make deals. They simply consumed everything they found and moved to the next world. They had done this to dozens of species already. The Veltai had found the dead worlds, empty and silent. "Captain," another voice called. It was Peck, the communications officer. "We are receiving signals from other ships. They are requesting orders." Zara looked around the bridge. Her crew of 22 officers stared at her with hope in their eyes. They trusted her to save them, but she could not save them. Nobody could save them. The Veltai were ending today. She walked to the captain's chair and sat down. The leather felt warm against her back. She had sat here for 8 years, exploring strange new worlds and meeting amazing creatures. She had been happy. Now everything was ash. "Open a channel to all Veltai ships," she said. Peck's hands moved over his controls. "Channel open, Captain." Zara took a deep breath. "This is Captain Zara Kethvar of the research vessel Luminous Dawn. I am transmitting on all emergency frequencies. Our world is lost. Our fleet is destroyed. Our people are dying. But we will not die silently." She paused and looked out at the burning planet again. "To any Veltai who can hear this message, you have your orders. Run. Hide. Survive if you can. Tell the galaxy what happened here. Tell them about the hive. Warn others of what is coming." Her voice grew stronger. "And to any other species listening to this signal, this is what the hive does. They do not negotiate. They do not show mercy. They will come for you next. They will come for everyone." Zara stood up and walked to the communications station. Peck looked at her with confusion as she began typing commands into the computer. "Captain, what are you doing?" he asked. "I'm sending our entire database to anyone who will listen," she said. "Our history, our language, our star maps, everything we know about the hive. Their ship designs, their weapons, their tactics. If we must die, then at least our knowledge will survive." She included coordinates to their location and a plea for help. even though she knew help would never come. The galaxy was huge and empty. Most species had never traveled beyond their own star systems. Those that did were usually too far away or too weak to fight the hive. Still, she had to try. Broadcasting on all frequencies, Peck reported. The signal will reach nearby systems in a few hours. Good, Zara said. She returned to her chair and waited. The hive ships were moving closer now. She could see them on the scanner, black dots growing larger. They moved in perfect lines like soldiers marching. Soon they would be in weapons range. Captain, Jorik said softly, "It has been an honor to serve with you." Zara smiled sadly. "The honor was mine, old friend." The luminous dawn had no weapons to fight back with, no armor to protect them. But they were still Veltai. They would face death with dignity, as their ancestors had taught them. Outside the ship, the stars continued to shine. The galaxy was vast and beautiful. Somewhere among those points of light, her message was traveling through space at the speed of light, carrying the last words of her dying people. She hoped someone was listening. Admiral Sarah Chen was drinking her morning coffee when the signal arrived at Luna Command. She stood at the observation deck, looking down at Earth through the massive windows. The blue and green planet turned slowly below, peaceful and beautiful. White clouds swirled over the oceans. City lights twinkled on the dark side like scattered diamonds. It was a good morning. Humanity had just finished building their 15th colony world. The terraforming of New Australia was complete, and the first 1,000,000 settlers would arrive next month. Trade ships moved between the stars like busy ants. The Sol Defense Fleet patrolled the outer planets, keeping space safe for everyone. Then, Lieutenant Rodriguez burst into the observation lounge, his face pale with excitement. "Admiral," he said, breathing hard, "you need to see this immediately. We received an alien transmission an hour ago." Sarah set down her coffee cup. In her 25 years of service, she had never heard those words. Alien transmission. Humanity had been searching for other intelligent life for 3 centuries. They had found planets with simple creatures, even some with complex animals, but never a species that could build ships and send radio signals. "Show me," she said. They hurried to the communications center, a huge room filled with screens and computers. Dozens of technicians worked at their stations, analyzing data from across the solar system. The main screen showed a wave pattern that looked chaotic and strange. The signal came from 847 light-years away, Rodriguez explained. "It's not random noise, there are clear mathematical patterns. The AI has been working to decode it for the past hour." Sarah stared at the screen. 800 light-years. That was farther than any human had ever traveled. Their fastest ships could only jump 50 light-years at a time, and even that took enormous amounts of energy. "What does it say?" she asked. "Still working on it, Admiral. But we can tell it's definitely from an intelligent species. The complexity is incredible. It's like they uploaded their entire civilization into this one transmission." Dr. Lisa Park, the head of xenolinguistics, walked over to them. She looked tired but excited. "Admiral, this is amazing. They included mathematical constants, star charts, even what looks like a periodic table. We're starting to understand their language structure." Sarah nodded. "How long until we have a full translation?" "Maybe 6 more hours if we're lucky. But, Admiral, there's something you should know. The signal is marked with what appears to be extreme urgency indicators. The same patterns repeat over and over. We think it might be a distress call." The Admiral felt a cold feeling in her stomach. Humanity's first contact with aliens, and they might be in trouble. She had read every first contact protocol in the book. None of them covered this situation. "Keep working," she ordered. "I want updates every 30 minutes and contact the Earth Assembly. Tell them we have a situation." 6 hours later, Sarah sat in the assembly chamber on Earth, surrounded by representatives from every nation and colony. The great hall was buzzing with nervous voices. Everyone knew something big had happened, but only a few people knew what. Dr. Park stood at the center podium holding a data pad. Her hands shook slightly as she spoke. "The message comes from a species called the Veltai," she began. They are a peaceful civilization that has existed for over 2,000 years. 3 days ago, they were attacked by something called the Hive. The hall went quiet. Sarah could hear people breathing. The Hive appears to be a conquering species, Dr. Park continued. According to the Veltai records, they have destroyed dozens of other civilizations. They do not negotiate. They do not take prisoners. They simply consume everything and everyone they find. Images appeared on the large screens around the hall. Alien cities burning. Strange ships falling from the sky. The representatives gasped and whispered to each other. The Veltai are facing complete extinction, Dr. Park said. Their military was destroyed. Their planets are being burned. The few survivors are scattered and hunted. This message was sent as a final desperate plea for help. President Martinez of Earth stood up. Dr. Park, how far away are they? 847 light years, Mr. President. And this Hive? Could they threaten Earth? Dr. Park looked at her notes. According to the Veltai data, the Hive expands constantly. They never stop. If they continue at their current rate, they could reach human space in perhaps 50 to 100 years. The hall erupted in voices. Some representatives argued that the distance was too great to matter. Others worried about humanity getting involved in an alien war. A few suggested that they should prepare Earth's defenses instead of helping strangers. Admiral Chen stood up. The hall slowly went quiet. With respect to this assembly, she said, this is not just about helping aliens. This is about who we are as a species. She looked around the room, making eye contact with as many representatives as she could. For 300 years, we have been trying to be better than our ancestors. We ended war on Earth. We stopped destroying our environment. We learned to work together as one people. We built a civilization based on helping each other instead of hurting each other. Sarah's voice grew stronger. Now we face our first test as a galactic species. There are people out there who are dying because monsters decided they should not exist. We have the power to help them. The question is simple. What kind of species do we want to be? The debate lasted 12 hours. Representatives argued about cost and risk. Military leaders discussed the challenges of fighting a war so far from home. Scientists worried about unknown alien technology. But in the end, the vote was unanimous. 437 votes in favor, 0 against. Humanity would go to war. Within hours, emergency orders went out to every shipyard in the solar system. Construction crews worked around the clock, building the largest fleet in human history. The orbital factories around Mars hummed with activity. Engineers pulled old warship designs from storage and made them better. Admiral Chen stood once again at the observation deck on Luna Command. But now, instead of peaceful trade ships, she watched warships gathering in formation, sleek destroyers, heavy cruisers, and massive dreadnoughts, all of them painted with Earth's blue and green colors. Lieutenant Rodriguez joined her at the window. The fleet will be ready in 8 weeks, Admiral, he reported. 1,847 ships, the largest military force humanity has ever assembled. Sarah nodded. And the crew? Volunteers from every colony and nation. We had to turn people away. Everyone wants to be part of this. Sarah looked out at the growing fleet. Each ship carried the hopes of humanity. They were going to travel farther than anyone had ever gone, to fight an enemy they had never seen, to save people they had never met. Signal the fleet, she said. Begin. Preparation for departure. We have people to save. The human expeditionary force left Earth's solar system on a cold Tuesday morning. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of her flagship, Terra's Wrath, watching the last of the outer planets disappear behind them. The massive dreadnought was 2 kilometers long and carried enough firepower to level a small moon. Behind her, 1,846 other ships followed in perfect formation. It was the largest fleet humanity had ever assembled. Fast destroyers that could dance around enemy fire. Heavy cruisers packed with weapons and armor. Massive dreadnoughts like her own ship that could punch through anything. Supply vessels carried food, ammunition, and spare parts for a war that might last years. Medical ships were ready to treat wounded soldiers and maybe even wounded aliens. The jump to hyperspace was smooth. One moment they were looking at normal stars. The next they were traveling through the strange twisted space between dimensions. The journey to Veltai territory would take 2 years, even at maximum speed. 2 years to prepare for a war against an enemy they had never seen. Chen walked through the corridors of her ship every day talking to her crew. They came from every nation on Earth and every colony humanity had built. Lieutenant Kim from New Seoul worked next to Sergeant Murphy from Mars Colony. Dr. Patel from the Europa Research Station served alongside Commander Okafor from the African Space Force. They all wore the same blue uniform with Earth's symbol on the shoulder, a small blue and green circle that reminded them what they were fighting for. "Admiral," called Captain Rodriguez as she entered the strategy room. "The morning briefing is ready." Chen took her seat at the head of the table. Around her sat the commanders of the major ship groups, 30 men and women who would lead humanity's first interstellar war. The holographic display in the center showed everything they knew about the hive. "What do we have from the probe reports?" Chen asked. Commander Jackson, who led the reconnaissance group, stood up. "The automated probes we sent ahead are sending back good data. The hive has occupied 17 star systems in Veltai space. They are building some kind of processing facilities on each conquered planet." The holographic display changed to show images from the probe cameras. Huge black structures covered the surfaces of dead worlds. Strange ships moved between them like insects around a hive. "What are those facilities for?" asked Captain Williams from the destroyer squadron. Dr. Foster, the fleet's xenobiology expert, cleared his throat. "Based on the energy readings and chemical signatures, we believe they are breaking down the organic matter from conquered worlds. Plants, animals, even the bodies of dead Veltai. Everything gets processed into raw materials for building more hive ships and soldiers." The room was quiet for a moment. Chen had seen war before, but this was different. This was not a war between armies or even between species. This was extermination, followed by consumption. "Show me their ship designs," she ordered. New images appeared. The hive ships looked like living things made of metal and bone, long and black with sharp points. No windows or lights that human eyes could see. They moved in perfect groups, never breaking formation. "They have 3 main types," Jackson explained. "Small fighters that attack in swarms, medium cruisers that seem to be their main battleships, and huge vessels we're calling carriers that launch the fighters." "What about their weapons?" Chen asked. "Energy beams of some kind. They cut through Veltai ships like paper. But Admiral, the Veltai ships were not built for war. We don't know how effective hive weapons will be against our armor." Chen nodded. That was the big question. Human ships were designed for combat. Their hulls were thick metal and ceramic composites. Their shields could stop most energy weapons, but they had never faced anything like the hive. "What about their numbers?" she asked. "Difficult to estimate," Jackson replied. "But based on the probe data, we think they have at least 5,000 ships in Veltai space. Maybe more." Chen did the math in her head. 5,000 against less than 2,000. Not good odds, but not impossible either. Human ships were individually more powerful than anything the Veltai had built. The question was whether they were more powerful than hive ships. "Any word from Veltai survivors?" she asked. Communications Officer Park spoke up. "We've detected some scattered signals from refugee ships hiding in asteroid fields and dead systems. Most are too weak or too scrambled to understand. But we did decode one clear message yesterday." The holographic display changed to show text in the flowing Veltai language with English translation below. "To the humans who answered our call, we thank you for your courage. We have seen your ships approaching through our long-range sensors. Please know that the hive grows stronger every day. They are building new ships from the bodies of our worlds. Be careful, be smart. Do not let our extinction become yours as well. Signed, Captain Zara Kethvar, Veltai Defense Force." Chen felt a chill. Captain Kethvar was the one who had sent the original distress signal. She was still alive, still fighting somehow. "Can we respond to her?" Chen asked. Not without giving away our position to the hive, Park replied. We'll have to wait until we arrive. The months passed slowly. The fleet continued its journey through hyperspace while the crews trained constantly. Marines practiced boarding actions against mock-ups of hive ships. Pilots ran simulation battles over and over. Engineers worked to improve weapons and shields based on the probe data. Chen spent hours in the computer simulation rooms, fighting virtual battles against hive fleets. She tried every tactic she could think of. Direct assault, hit, and run attacks, dividing her forces, keeping them together. The computer could only guess at hive capabilities, but it helped her think through the possibilities. Late at night, she would stand alone on the observation deck, looking out at the twisted colors of hyperspace. Somewhere out there, 800 light-years from home, people were dying while monsters consumed their worlds. Every day they traveled was another day of suffering for the survivors. But it was also another day of preparation for humanity. Another day to get ready for the most important battle their species had ever fought. 1 month until we arrive, Rodriguez reported one morning. All ships report ready for combat. Chen looked at the tactical display showing her fleet. Nearly 2,000 ships filled with 40 million tons of weapons, armor, and human determination. They carried the best technology Earth could build and the finest soldiers humanity could train. Send a message to all ships, she ordered. Remind the crews why we're here. The Veltai asked for help, and we answered. The hive thinks they can exterminate anyone they choose. Today we prove them wrong. She paused and looked out at the endless tunnel of hyperspace. In 1 month we drop back into normal space. The hive has never faced humanity before. They're about to learn what happens when they threaten innocent people. The Terra's Wrath and her sister ships continued their journey toward war, carrying Earth's promise across the dark between the stars. The human expeditionary force dropped out of hyperspace like a hammer falling from heaven. One moment the space around Veltai Prime was empty, except for the black hive ships stripping the dead planet. The next moment, nearly 2,000 human warships materialized in perfect battle formation. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of Terra's Wrath, watching the tactical display light up with enemy contacts. 200 hive ships floated around the burned planet like vultures feeding on a corpse. Massive black vessels with strange organic curves. They moved slowly, focused on their grim work of harvesting everything useful from the dead world below. All ships, battle stations, Chen ordered calmly. Target acquisition in progress. The human fleet spread out in a wide arc, surrounding the hive ships. Each human vessel locked weapons onto multiple targets. The hive ships seemed confused by the sudden appearance of unknown vessels. They turned slowly, their movements uncertain. Admiral, reported Lieutenant Park from the communication station. We're receiving signals from the hive ships. The computer is trying to translate. What are they saying? Chen asked. Park listened to his earpiece for a moment. It's very basic. Something like identify and territory and leave immediately. Chen smiled grimly. Send them a message back. Tell them this. We are humanity. We came because someone asked for help. You should have thought about that before you started murdering innocent people. The hive ships began moving into their own formation. Chen had studied their tactics during the long journey. They fought in swarms, overwhelming enemies with numbers and coordinated attacks. Their ships were individually weaker than human vessels, but they made up for it with perfect teamwork. Hive ships are forming attack patterns, reported Commander Jackson. Energy readings are spiking across their fleet. All ships, Chen announced over the fleet communication channel, remember your training. These things wiped out an entire civilization in 3 days. They think we're just another weak species they can push around. Let's show them how wrong they are. She paused for just a moment, thinking about the long journey. From Earth, the debates in the assembly, the volunteers who had left their families behind, the hope in Captain Kethvar's message, fire, she said quietly. The human fleet opened fire all at once. Nearly 2,000 ships unleashed everything they had in the same instant. Plasma cannons, particle beams, and missile swarms reached across space at the speed of light. The darkness between worlds suddenly blazed with deadly light. The hive ships had no chance to react. In less than 30 seconds, half of their fleet simply ceased to exist. Ships that had terrorized the galaxy for thousands of years vanished in balls of superheated gas. The survivors tried to scatter, but human weapons tracked them with perfect accuracy. When the light faded, only a few dozen hive ships remained. They hung in space, crippled and burning. Some tried to limp away. Others seemed to be sending desperate signals to other hive fleets. "Admiral," called Captain Rodriguez, "we're detecting a weak signal from the asteroid belt. It's Veltai in origin." "Put it through," Chen ordered. A new voice came over the speakers. It was female and spoke in accented English. "Unknown fleet, this is Captain Zara Kethvar of the Veltai Defense Force. I cannot believe what I am seeing. Did you really just destroy 200 hive ships in half a minute?" Chen smiled. After 2 years of travel, they had finally found the brave captain who had sent the first distress call. "Captain Kethvar, this is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Human Expeditionary Force. We received your message 800 light-years away. We came as fast as we could." There was a long pause. When Kethvar spoke again, her voice was shaking. "You traveled 800 light-years to help people you had never met." "That's what good people do," Chen replied simply. "Are you able to move your ship? We'd like to meet you in person." An hour later, a small Veltai ship docked with Terra's Wrath. Captain Kethvar walked onto the human flagship with 5 members of her crew. She was tall and slender with purple skin and large violet eyes. She wore a torn uniform that had once been white and gold. Chen met her in the main shuttle bay. The Veltai captain looked around at the human soldiers and equipment with amazement. "Your ship is enormous," Kethvar said in careful English. "And you have so many people. How many ships did you bring?" 1,847, Chen replied, "plus supply vessels and support craft. About 3 million personnel total." Kethvar's eyes went wide. 3 million people came to help us? "Actually, Captain, we had to turn volunteers away. Half of humanity wanted to join this mission." The Veltai captain sat down heavily on a nearby crate. For a moment, she just stared at the floor. Then she looked up at Chen with tears in her large eyes. "Admiral, I must tell you something. When I sent that message, I did not really believe anyone would hear it. I certainly never imagined anyone would travel so far to help. We thought we were alone in a galaxy full of monsters." Chen knelt down beside her. "You're not alone anymore, and we're going to make sure the monsters learn to fear someone else for a change." Over the next few hours, Kethvar shared everything she knew about the Hive invasion. She had been hiding in the asteroid belt for 2 years with the last functioning Veltai warship and about 50 survivors. They had watched helplessly as the Hive consumed world after world. "They strip everything," she explained, pointing to images on the display screen. "Plants, animals, minerals, even the atmosphere. Then, they use it all to build more ships and more soldiers. Every world they take makes them stronger." Chen studied the tactical maps. The Hive controlled 17 star systems now. Billions of Veltai were dead. But according to Kethvar's intelligence, there were still millions of survivors hiding in space stations, asteroid bases, and the outer planets of distant systems. "How many Hive ships are there in total?" Chen asked. "We estimate 5,000, maybe more. And Admiral, they learn from every battle. They will adapt to your weapons and tactics quickly." Chen nodded. 5,000 ships against her 2,000. But the first engagement had shown that human technology was superior. The Hive had lost 200 ships without destroying a single human vessel. "Captain Kethvar," Chen said formally, "on behalf of humanity, I invite you and your crew to join our fleet. Your knowledge of Hive tactics and local space will be invaluable." The Veltai captain stood up and straightened her torn uniform. "Admiral Chen, it would be my honor to serve alongside humanity. But I must ask you something. This will be a long and dangerous war. The Hive will throw everything they have at you. Why are you really doing this?" Chen looked out through the shuttle bay windows at the stars beyond. Somewhere out there, Hive ships were hunting the last Veltai survivors. Somewhere else, they were probably attacking another peaceful species. "Captain, my people spent 300 years learning to be better than our worst instincts. We stopped fighting each other and started working together. We built a civilization based on helping people instead of hurting them. This is our first test as a galactic species. She turned back to face Keithvar. The Hive thinks might makes right. They think they can destroy anyone weaker than themselves. We're here to prove that sometimes the galaxy fights back. Keithvar smiled for the first time since Chen had met her. Then let us begin. I know where they will attack next. The war that followed became known across the galaxy as the Human Rampage. For 6 months, Admiral Sarah Chen's fleet moved through Hive territory like an unstoppable storm. They did not just fight the Hive. They hunted them. Captain Zara Keithvar stood beside Chen on the bridge of Terra's Wrath, watching another Hive world burn. But this time, it was the Hive who were dying. Human Marines in powered armor stormed through Hive breeding facilities, destroying everything they found. Above them, human ships rained fire from the sky with surgical precision. Target the command structures, Chen ordered calmly. Leave nothing that can coordinate a defense. The planet below had once been called Serenus by its original inhabitants. The Hive had consumed those people 3 years ago and turned their beautiful world into a massive factory. Black metal structures covered the surface like a disease. Millions of Hive drones worked endlessly, building ships and soldiers for their endless war. Now human weapons turned those same factories into funeral pyres. Admiral, reported Commander Jackson from the tactical station. Marine assault teams have secured the primary breeding complex. They are requesting permission to destroy it. Granted, Chen said without hesitation. Make sure nothing survives. New sun bloomed on the planet's surface as the Marines detonated the facility. The explosion was so bright that the ship's windows automatically darkened to protect human eyes. When the light faded, a crater 10 kilometers wide marked where the Hive's future soldiers would have been born. Keithvar watched with mixed feelings. She was glad to see the Hive suffering for once, but the destruction was so complete, so methodical. She had never seen warfare like this. Admiral, she said quietly, your people fight very differently than mine did. Chen glanced at her alien friend. Over the past months they had become close. Keithvar had proven invaluable in understanding Hive tactics and locating hidden facilities. How so? Chen asked. The Veltai tried to defend our worlds and protect our people. You are destroying the Hive's ability to make war at all. You target their factories, their breeding centers, their command ships. You are not just winning battles. You are ending their capacity to fight. Chen nodded slowly. We call it total war, Captain. When an enemy threatens innocent people with extinction, you don't just defeat them. You make sure they can never threaten anyone again. The holographic display showed the current state of the war. Of the 17 systems the Hive had controlled, humanity now held 12. The remaining 5 were under siege. Red dots marked Hive ships fleeing deeper into their territory, away from the advancing human fleet. Status report, Chen called. Out. Lieutenant Park looked up from his station. All Marine units have completed their objectives on the surface. The planet is secure. We've rescued approximately 2,000 Veltai survivors from the Hive work camps. Chen felt a moment of satisfaction. Every rescued survivor was a victory against the Hive's plan of complete extermination. And the Hive fleet movements? She asked. Long-range sensors show they're massing ships near their home system, reported Commander Jackson. Intelligence estimates they have about 3,000 ships left. They appear to be making a final stand. Keithvar stepped forward. Admiral, the system they are gathering in, that is where it all began. The Hive homeworlds. According to our ancient records, they have been expanding from there for over 10,000 years. Chen studied the star chart. The Hive home system was 50 light-years deeper into their territory. It would be the most heavily defended place in their entire empire. How many worlds in that system? She asked. 7 planets, Keithvar replied. At least 3 of them are completely covered with Hive cities. Billions of drones. Thousands of breeding complexes. If we could destroy that system, the Hive would be finished. Chen completed the thought. Over the next 2 weeks, the human fleet gathered for the final assault. Ships that had been scattered, across multiple systems came together into one massive armada. Supply vessels brought fresh ammunition and replacement parts. Medical ships treated wounded Marines and transferred rescued survivors to safety. Chen stood in the main briefing room, addressing her senior officers. The holographic display showed the Hive home system in detail. "This is it," she said simply. "The end of the road. Intelligence reports that every remaining Hive ship is waiting for us in this system. They know we're coming, and they're ready for a fight." Captain Rodriguez raised his hand. "Admiral, our ships have taken damage over the past months. We're down to about 1,500 effective vessels. They still outnumber us 2-1. "True," Chen acknowledged. "But we have advantages they don't. We fight for something greater than ourselves. They fight only to consume and destroy." She looked around the room at the faces of her commanders, men and women from every part of human space, united in a common cause. "In 72 hours, we jump to the Hive home system. We will face their full strength. Some of us may not come home, but we will finish what they started when they decided to commit genocide against innocent people." The final battle began at dawn. Ship time. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Hive home system, facing a wall of black ships that stretched across space like a dark cloud. Chen stood on her bridge, calm as always. Beside her, Kethvar gripped the railing with white knuckles. 3,000 ships, Kethvar whispered. "I have never seen so many in one place." "Neither have I," Chen admitted. "But numbers aren't everything." The Hive fleet began moving forward in perfect formation. They had learned from their earlier defeats. Their ships spread out to avoid concentrated fire. They used the planets and moons as cover. They fought with a desperation they had never shown before. For 6 hours, the two fleets hammered at each other across the dark. Human ships used their superior weapons and armor to devastating effect. But the Hive fought back with everything they had. For the first time in the war, humanity took serious losses. "Terra's wrath to all ships," Chen broadcast as her flagship shook from another hit. "Target the planet killers. Those are the ships they use to glass worlds from orbit. Take them out first." The human fleet focused its fire on the largest Hive vessels. These were the ships that had burned Veltai Prime and dozens of other worlds. One by one, they exploded in brilliant flashes that lit up the entire system. As the battle raged, Kethvar noticed something on the sensor display. "Admiral," she called out excitedly. "Look at the third planet. Those structures on the surface are moving." Chen looked at the tactical display. The surface of the planet was covered with Hive cities. But now, massive shapes were rising from those cities into space. "They're launching everything they have," Chen realized. "Every ship, every fighter, every drone. This really is their last stand." Thousands of new contacts appeared on the display. Small fighters swarmed up from the planet's surface like angry insects. But they were met by human fighters launching from the carrier ships. The space around the planets became a chaotic battlefield, of small craft weaving between the larger vessels. Finally, after 8 hours of continuous fighting, the Hive fleet began to break. Their perfect formations fell apart as ships tried to retreat. But Chen had positioned her forces to cut off every escape route. "All ships," she announced. "Begin final assault on the planetary surfaces. Protocol Orion is in effect." Protocol Orion was humanity's plan for the complete elimination of Hive military capability. Marine assault ships landed on each Hive world. Powered armor soldiers stormed through underground tunnels and breeding complexes. From orbit, human ships provided precise fire support, destroying any facility that could build ships or soldiers. The last Hive Queen ship made a desperate run for deep space, trying to escape, with the genetic templates needed to rebuild their race. But Captain Rodriguez's destroyer squadron was waiting. The ancient vessel that had spawned countless horrors across the galaxy died in a ball of plasma fire. When the battle ended, the Hive home system was silent. 7 worlds that had buzzed with activity for 10,000 years now lay quiet and empty. The last Hive ships drifted as wreckage between the planets. Chen stood with Kethvar on the observation deck looking out at the ruins of the Hive Empire. "It's finished," Kethvar said softly. "After all these years, they're gone." Chen nodded. The galaxy is a safer place today. No other species will suffer what the Veltai suffered. Admiral, Kethvar said, turning to face her human friend. What will your people do now? Chen smiled. We go home, we rebuild. We help the Veltai survivors rebuild too if they want our help. And we keep watching the stars in case someone else needs help someday. The human expeditionary force began its long journey back to Earth 3 days later. But they did not travel alone. Hundreds of Veltai survivors came with them, along with refugees from a dozen other species the Hive had nearly destroyed. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. Sometimes, when evil spreads across the stars, someone fights back, and sometimes that someone is humanity.